Okay, welcome back. It's Road to War, Day 2. We're still looking at the same standards, the history standard of the effectiveness of cooperative efforts. Today we're going to look at alliances, how they started, what were the motivations, who became allies for World War II. Okay, so what motivated the nations of Europe to form alliances? As a reminder, here's our World War I alliances, 1914 to 1918, 1919, when it officially ended. We had the Triple Entente, which was Great Britain, France, and Russia in blue, and the Triple Alliance, Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Germany, which was in red. We know the Treaty of Versailles is what officially ended that war. We know Russia pulling out due to their own civil war. The Russian Revolution, broke the Triple Entente alliance, and the United States came in near the end to help there. All right, what motivated the nations of Europe to form alliances? So, why would you form an alliance with someone? Maybe you have similar interests, you have a common enemy, you believe that person will have your back. Those would all be good reasons to form alliances with someone. So, here's the alliances that happened for World War II. We have the Axis powers and we have the Allies. You have Italy, Germany, and Japan, United States, Great Britain, France. And then somewhere along the line, in's going to come Russia. So let's figure out about the motivations. We're going to take a look at the countries that I just showed you, their leaders, and some information about them. See if we can come up with some patterns as to why maybe they became allies. All right. So we're going to try and move this around. I'm going to eventually give you the link to do this, let you play around a little bit, see if you can move them around and figure out what goes where. So, Italy. He became one of Italy's most respected and loved leaders, and then one of its most hated. He was eventually shot and hung by his own people in 1945. He was Europe's first fascist dictator and the movement's motto. His goal was to restore the unity of the nation and lead it forward to unparalleled greatness, like the Roman Empire. He ruled Italy for more than 20 years and allied himself with Hitler in 1939, led Italy to a humiliating defeat in 1943. Who is the leader of Italy that we should move over here? None other than Benito Mussolini. Then we need to find Italy's flag. All right. So he distributed, let's see, why don't we put Germany here? So we know they're going to be allies. Who was the leader of Germany? See if we can find his picture on here. There he is, Adolf Hitler. Let's move him up here. Okay. So we'll put him up here by the flag. We'll find the word Germany. And then let's see if we can find him. There he is, an Austrian. He was by far the most powerful and terrifying statesman in German history. By the time he killed himself in his bunker, maybe, beneath a battered Berlin on April 30th, 1945, he had led Germany to the heights of military triumph in the depths of depravity and defeat. He brought the world into the most destructive war of all time and made the word Nazi synonymous with brutality, terror, mass slaughter, and destruction. Move some of this out of the way so we can put him here. Done. Now, who's the other ally? Well, we need to move these out of the way right now because we know it was Japan. So we'll have Japan here. And then let's see. Here we go. He built up one of the most powerful and fanatical militaries in the world before and during World War II. He led Japan into a great conflict with China, whom was nearly defeated. He was upset with USA economic sanctions against his nation. That means the USA decided they would not trade or buy products from Japan. And he retaliated by bombing the USA naval port of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. This brought the USA into the war and eventually Japan's unconditional surrender on September 2nd, 1945, about 1 month after Japan was devastated by the first use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or Hiroshima, if you're listening to um, the History Channel. And here he is. So let's move him up just a little bit. All right. And then for a semblance of continuity, let's move here, here, and whoops, here. Okay. So there are our Axis powers, who people come to call the bad guys. Now, let's see about the Allied powers. Well, we can move this over because we already got something about USA right here. The only USA president reelected 3 times, he used his power to lift the nation back to the prosperity following the Depression. He then led the USA to victory in the war, but died weeks before the defeat of Germany. He built up the USA military, cut off supplies to Japan, and sent weapons to the British. He was a strong advocate for democracy and freedom. He was none other than Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We have our flag, and we have our name. All right. So since we have Joseph Stalin here, it was called the USSR for many years when I was growing up. So this country has gone through a few names: Soviet Union, Russia, the United States of the Soviet Republic. Joseph Stalin. So you saw that initially France was there. France didn't last long into World War II. They were still pretty much suffering from World War I and started having their own problems and could not stay into World War II. Also, if you see this over here about the USA, we also came late into World War II, just like we did World War I. You see why? We'll look at that in more detail later. So let's see about Joseph Stalin. He's comparable to Hitler for his ruthless tactics. He reigned, which means he ruled, the USSR for 25 years as a dictator. He transformed a divided, poverty-stricken nation into a world superpower. The signing of the non-aggression pact with Hitler's Germany enabled the USSR to swallow the Baltic states and bully Finland. He supplied Hitler with food and war materials when Germany took over Poland. Much to his disbelief, Hitler turned on him in 1941. That's what brought him into the Allied powers. Stalin's perseverance on the Eastern Front played a major role in the Allies' victory. So unlike World War I, when they had to pull out, World War II, they were part of the reason the Allies won. Okay, so we can easily then put together this last one. So Winston Churchill of England, also known as Great Britain, demonstrated heroic leadership in Britain's most desperate times, rallied a nation with his stirring words. He was a sea lord when Britain went to war in 1914 and became prime minister in 1940. Virtually alone, Britain faced a Nazi empire that controlled almost all of Europe. As the main architect of the British-American-Soviet alliance, he demonstrated his military and political expertise, despite denouncing USSR for its communist ideals. So I'm going to send you guys the link, or it's going to be on the Power School Learning page, and you can play around with this as well. Okay, so let's go back to Road to War. All right. So what motivated some of these to form alliances? We're going to look and see some similar interests and some common enemies. Were we in the classroom, we would put together a page that looks something like this in our notebooks. So this is the digital page that I just played around with. Then I read over it and made some highlights, looking at some similarities. So Hitler made the word Nazi synonymous with brutality, terror, mass slaughter, and destruction. Mussolini becomes one of Italy's most respected and then hated. So I think same thing there with Hitler, with the world. Mussolini's goal was to restore the unity of the nation. That's the same thing Hitler wanted for Germany, a united nation, and lead it forward to unparalleled greatness. So very similar to Adolf Hitler's. Emperor Hirohito, again, similar interests. He builds up one of the most powerful and fanatical militaries in the world before and during World War II. So that fanatical is that nationalism, the loyalty to Japan. That's why they were able to have the kamikaze fighters, the ones who would, just use their own airplane as a bomb and commit suicide for the country of Japan if it was going to further their cause in the war. He's upset with USA economic sanctions, but similar interest here in terms of building up their military and moving their and uniting their countries as one Japan, one Italy, one Germany, and having the people all feel very much love and pride for those countries. So all looking at nationalism as well. So over here, Franklin Roosevelt, Winston Churchill have some similar interests, having strong militaries, having strong politics, having the beliefs in freedom of the people, wanting peace around the world. And Joseph Stalin, he's one that doesn't really fit in on this side, as you see I highlighted, comparable to Hitler for his ruthless tactics. Again, he was very similar, and that's why I had you learn about him last week with these other three leaders. They were all dictators, all totalitarian leaders, expected great loyalty from their citizens, committed persecution against their anybody that opposed them or even groups in their country in order to make their countries stronger. So he doesn't quite fit in here with some of the similar interests. So again, these three allies, they've got some similar interests. These two, similar interests. And how does he fit in? A common enemy. So what are their similar interests? World domination, fear equals respect. What are their similar interests? Freedom, strong national government. Common enemy becomes Hitler. The big picture here. So the question being, though, they all three wanted world domination for their own countries, not as three countries together. So what do you think would have happened to their alliance had they won World War II? Something to think about. What might our world look like today had the Axis powers won World War II? Maybe that's something that you could send me your opinion of. So there is our day 2 of the Road to War. We're going to look at this that you see down here. Where was it? The Non-Aggression Pact. I'll have you look at that tomorrow and see what that was and why that ended up placing Stalin over here in the Allied powers. We know this side won, so we know what our world looks like today because of that. Again, I want you thinking about what might be different in our world today had the Axis powers won World War II. If you want to send me your answer to that any way you'd like, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay.